to the first workshop of the Ambition Emotion program this spring semester. I'm so excited to have you all here, so excited to get started, so excited for you to begin the endeavor of connecting with a mentor and learning about what you want to do professionally and then getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities. This workshop and this program in general is going to help you get to where you want to be as a young professional into your career. And essentially for these workshops, I'm expecting you to watch this either live at 8 p.m., right when it goes live, or within the next 24 hours, and then post your comments to the questions that I have for you during the workshop. I will state those questions during the workshop when I'm doing our interviews with our interviewees, our guests for the evening. But more importantly, I want to know that you're engaged, that you're participating with this, because we've got a lot of great content for you. Our first call complete with your mentor is expected to happen by March 10th. So when you're meeting with your mentor, when you're looking at, okay, what date should I have my first meeting by? March 10th is the date that you should hopefully have had that first call set and done by. Now, when you get introduced to your mentor, you should reach out immediately. You should start the conversation immediately. You should not delay. I don't care what's going on in your world. I don't care if you're waiting for a career fair to happen. I don't care if you're waiting for some job interview to happen or you're waiting to hear back from some company. Get started. These mentors are here to help you. The more you delay getting opportunities with your mentor. So get started. And then March 28th is when you should have your second call completed by. And then you should have your third call with your mentor on April 20th. Now you can have more calls with your mentor. Actually, it's highly encouraged. But for successful completion of this program, for the way that we define it, have 3 conversations, at least 3 conversations. And those are just the general guidelines for when we believe that you should have those conversations by. So in late April, we will send a post-program assessment, which will allow us to capture your feedback on the program, on the experience itself. And that's essentially it. That's the program for the semester. I'm really excited to begin working with you. I'm really excited to get started. So this workshop is going to be roughly an hour long. So please post your questions in the comments area and we will work on answering them as soon as you post them. Try to give us at least 48 hours and you'll be notified, especially if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, you'll be notified anytime that we respond to your comments in the YouTube channel. So anytime that you post a question, anytime you make a comment, we'll know, we'll see it. But especially questions, we will do our best to answer those as they come up. And by the way, you can ask questions both to myself or to our guests for the evening. You're more than welcome to ask both, and we will try to get our guests to answer those questions. And at minimum, if we can't get our guest to answer him or herself, we will ask our guests those questions and get their answer via email on our own and then respond to that in the comments section. So during this workshop, we're going to cover how to achieve success in this program, how to expand your network and begin having conversations with people that you want to surround yourself with, and how you can begin working towards a goal with your mentor. This specific workshop's all about how do I get my foot in the door with opportunities. This could be an opportunity for a job or an internship. It could be an opportunity to get mentored by somebody, to be an apprentice. It could be an opportunity just to learn from somebody else, to start setting up informational interviews and just building your network. Either way, this is about getting your foot in the door, because networking is not a transaction. It's not about, hey, I'm reaching out to you so that you can get me this. Like, don't get me wrong. Your end goal could be to ultimately land an internship, and that absolutely can happen, but that is not how it goes about. That's not how you go about doing it. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with somebody. You have to build a rapport with somebody. And you know what? It might come about. They might say, hey, my company is actually looking to hire somebody, or I know this person that you should connect with, and they make an introduction, and that leads to that next opportunity. You never know how this is going to work out, but the key is that you're not expecting it from the relationship. You're coming in grateful for whatever opportunity that can come about from this relationship with your mentor, and you make the most out of it. But I just want to say that our goal is about how do we get your foot in the door? How can we help you effectively make those relationships happen and get the ball rolling for you? So to get credit for attendance during this workshop, I'll be asking you 3 questions throughout the workshop for you to answer, and post your answers to these questions in the comments sections within 24 hours of this video going live. So if you're watching the Sunday night episode of this workshop, I'll expect you to have your comments made, your answers to the questions that we post by 8 p.m. on Monday. If you're watching the Monday night version, I'll expect your answers to be posted by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And if you're watching the Tuesday version of this workshop, I'm expecting your answers to be posted by Wednesday at 8 p.m. After that, you will not get credit. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop. then I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. So I want to set proper expectations. This program will not guarantee you an internship. It will not guarantee you a job, getting promoted faster than your peers. Having that mindset will not lead to proper results. This is not a program that hands things on a silver platter. These are for students. This program is for students that want to take their career path and their career into the next level, to their college experience to the next level, because that's absolutely what this program can do for you. If you think like, hey, I'm going to sit back, do the bare bones minimum, not really like apply myself, you're going to get the outcome that you put into it. But if you really apply yourself, you absolutely can get the outcomes that you want. I mean, I like to think about it as the law of attraction. If you come in expecting negativity, you will get negativity. If you're open to the positive, you will achieve positive outcomes. You will attract positivity to what you want to achieve. So I really want to encourage you to come in with an open mind and a positive outlook for what you can achieve and the willingness to work hard towards getting there. Students who have gone through this program have landed jobs at places like Google and other Silicon Valley companies, Wall Street investment banks, prestigious PR and marketing firms, and major engineering firms. Absolutely, yes, that has happened many times for many students. But did those outcomes get handed to them on a silver platter? Absolutely not. It's all about what you put into this program and the outcomes that you can achieve. They absolutely are there. They are absolutely possible. You have no idea how this can come about and help you out in terms of your mentor. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, this program can really help you accelerate. Imagine just like getting dumped a bunch of gasoline on your big fire that you're already building. If you're burning barely at an ember, let this program be a sliding point, a starting point for you to launch off. But if you think and you come in with the mentality that, hey, I'm kind of doing a couple things, but I'm kind of following the status quo of like, I just go to the annual career fairs and I apply on the online website and that's pretty much it. If you're coming in with that mentality and that you're not going to try to or be willing to open up and apply and do other things to help you get your foot in the door, this program you may struggle with because we're going to teach you a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can go about getting your foot in the door and getting opportunities for yourself that are not the normal way. That's why this program is for the students that are really interested in taking their life, their career to the next level, because these are the tips that you are not taught in school. And the experts that we bring in, the guests that we bring in to these workshops have content, insight, and wisdom that they've utilized and explained within their books, within articles, within other pieces of content they've created that they've built an expertise on. And so the point all I'm making is that this program, if you're interested in taking your life, your career, your college experience to the next level, you are in the right place. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, a couple of keynotes about mentorship. Now, when it comes to your mentor and who you are matched with, one thing that we leverage extensively is this research called work orientation, which is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. Imagine a triangle and imagine it being a spectrum that can change throughout your life. So after you take your assessment and after you get matched with your mentor and you log into your dashboard, you can actually see your work orientation and your paired mentor's work orientation, which is really cool. Because what we've learned is when work orientation is aligned for a mentoring relationship, the likelihood that that relationship lasts for the full 6 months is considered both productive and quality by both participants increases by 400%. It's crazy how powerful work orientation is when it comes to mentor matching. If we were just to match you based on your career interest or their status within their company or their area of expertise, we know that those are only transactional metrics. And the likelihood that that relationship will last for the full 6 months and be considered both productive and quality is low, because then there's an expectation that someone's going to give you something or that you're going to give them something. And that's ultimately not how successful mentorship works. Successful mentorship works when both people can, on a human level, invest in each other. And that's how we make the matches happen. The other key thing about mentorship is vulnerability. The willingness to open up about who you are and what you want to accomplish in your story. I know that when you are more vulnerable, you are much more likely to build trust. You cannot build trust unless you've got vulnerability first. And it's up to you or your mentor to be the first person to take that step. So I want to challenge you to be the first person to take that step, to be vulnerable first. And to give you an idea of what vulnerability looks like, I will share with you my story. Now, I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about mentorship because I needed mentors in my life. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. And I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I mean, that hit me like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along those lines, you find yourself like as if it were puberty, it would just come to me. But that's not how life works. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because no one who I had known, no one who I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. And so I had to accept either being a total failure or redefine my definition of success. And so I chose the latter. So I ended up enrolling in a program in St. George, Utah, to help me turn my life around. And that's where I really got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, really having personal mentors, people that are there for you, are so powerful. I don't want to ever discredit that, because I feel like sometimes when we're here and we're thinking about our professional outcomes, we don't realize how valuable mentors can be on our personal level and really what they can do for us. Because if they help you open your mind to what you can accomplish in your career, or what you can accomplish as a person, in who you can emulate your life after, they can really show you something that you didn't actually even believe in yourself that you could accomplish. And I think that's so powerful. And that's really what they did for me. But on a professional level, they helped me really come to the grips with the fact that when you Googled search my name when I was 19 years old, the first thing you saw was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I'm one of the 8. I mean, there could not have been a bigger red X across my name when applying for any role. I mean, could you imagine that? Literally, any role I would apply for, I would have showed up with a big red flag. That is bad. So about a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago. That's where my family's from, for the weekend, to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. We start talking. He starts sharing with me about his life. I start sharing with him about my life. We hit it off. I take a keen interest in him. I'm actively listening. I'm sharing. I'm really trying to put myself into his shoes, and I'm really, most importantly, actively listening. I'm taking down notes. I'm following up on the things that he has to say. I'm really digging into his world because he loves to talk about himself, and I'm really playing into that. Well, it turns out he's the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And by the time that plane lands, he offers me an internship on the spot doing financial analysis for SkyWest Airlines. Boom. Like right on the spot. What an amazing experience. I mean, he took me under his wing. He didn't care about my background. He didn't care about what I had gone through or where I was going or the fact that I may even go to prison sometime in the next year. He took me under his wing and gave me a shot. And that was huge. And that's really where the whole idea for Ambition and Motion came from, was like the fact that opportunities could come out of the blue, that they didn't come from just applying on a website and people putting your resume in a background check system, and that, maybe you get spit out with this opportunity. I learned that opportunities could come from just putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and taking a keen interest in somebody else and actively listening to them. And so I think that's such an important story to share with you, because it shows, my vulnerability, but 2, it shows that opportunities can come from a wide array of places, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it matters where you're going. And if you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, you absolutely can achieve it, but you have to put in the work to go and get there, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. Don't hold all your failures, your mistakes close to the chest because you think people will judge you. Put them out into the world, because ultimately people will give you opportunities and they will believe in you if you let them. So that's something that's extremely important and extremely helpful for this workshop that I really wanted to share with you. So, hey, Megan, we're going to cut that real quick, like right now. So I just shared my story. We're gonna cut right where I ended my story, and I'm going to just check on a couple of things. I'm actually having a delivery right now, and so I just want to make sure that everything's good with the delivery. I'll be right back to finish up this episode of the workshop. Hey, babe, is everything good? Great. I'm gonna finish my workshop. All right, cool. So we're back. Thanks, Megan, for cutting these in and putting this together. I'm really excited to see how this turns out. So now that I've shared my story with you, I am excited for you to embark on your mentor relationship. And I hope that me being vulnerable with you, maybe it inspired you to be vulnerable with your mentor. Hopefully it gave you the confidence to be comfortable with your mentor. And at minimum, it just hopefully it just gave you the confidence to be comfortable with yourself and who you are and where you want to be and where you're going. Now, for this mentor program, there are three keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your story, or sorry, in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people, building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can be better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. Well, then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message. And in fact, if you go on the tips and templates tab on the AIM dashboard, you can actually see a copy and pastable link that you can literally copy and paste to help you send this message out to other professionals on LinkedIn. But if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you are going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 7% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker, but one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else, something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening. And I promise you, it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speaker because we've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest. Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to dive into our topic of how to get our foot in the door for professional opportunities. Really, what can we do to set ourselves apart? I mean, we're in this crazy COVID world right now where we've got we maybe don't have traditional networking events where we can, shake hands. The college curriculum is changing about what we can do to network and get ourselves out there, to get our names out there, to get our voices out there. And in this whole notion of what it means to be successful in terms of our career is kind of changing, but also our adjustment of just going from college to career is changing too. Like you can't just not show up to class and then show up to the exam, get an A, and think that's how the real working world is. It doesn't work like that. So fortunately, we've got an incredible guest with us here this evening to share with us what we can do to best get our foot in the door and just tactics and strategies of things that we should be thinking about as it pertains to getting our foot in the door. This evening, we have Katy Wright with us. Katy is an accomplished real estate executive with a successful track record directing corporate real estate portfolios, workplace experience, workforce location strategy, space planning and design, site selection, and capital and expense budgets.
She's skilled in building real estate programs from the ground up, building teams and leveraging strategic partnerships to drive business results and client delivery. She's been an executive for Bank One Corp, JP Morgan, and WeWork. Katy, thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Good to see you.
So, Katy, I know I kind of gave just like a brief overview of you and your background, but I would love if you could just maybe high level share with us, share with the audience, share with our students, what have you done to get your foot in the door for your professional opportunities throughout your career? Why did you make your transitions? What did you do to go about just getting your foot in the door for those opportunities? How did that all shake out and work?
Well, it's interesting. It changed over the years, and I think it's applicable even today. When I first started with Bank One, predecessor to JP Morgan Chase, ended up being at that firm. Little did I know that it was going to be a 28-year run. But when I first started, I actually interviewed on campus. And so I think even today, you can't discount that on-campus opportunity. Companies will still go to the campus recruiting offices and interview and give you opportunities. That's how I got my start in the financial industry sector. And at that time, we weren't doing nearly as much online. But when I left JP Morgan Chase, which was for personal family reasons. My daughter at the time was going to be a junior in high school. I wasn't interested in relocating. My job was relocating, and I decided, you know what, it's time for a really great opportunity, and let me just see what's out there. And it was an extraordinary journey because the first job I had gotten off college campus. Now the world had changed, which we're facing all a change right now, which you said, in your preamble, Garrett. We're changing because of COVID. So a lot of things are still online, even with, the variant. So when I got back out into the job world, I actually leveraged LinkedIn significantly. Never underestimate the value of that platform. But more than just looking at jobs that were listed, what's really important is looking at the hidden job market. And the hidden job market are those opportunities that are there that either haven't been posted yet or are still being discussed. And how you actually tap into that hidden job market is through making connections in the industry to which you want to be employed. You start looking for the HR people, the COOs, or the CFOs, or the VPs of these companies. You start creating a connection. When you request a connection and you get that connection back, then you send them a networking letter. And you got to use, if you get the connection, it's for free because then you have access to their email, right? Otherwise, you're paying for the platform. You still have what they call in-mails, and so you can still send a request. And I'm found that not a lot of people do that, and that's being proactive about your career search and really assertive and saying, and then you put very short bullets. I just graduated, with such a degree. And here are the things that I'm interested in, and here's my background, bullet, bullet, bullet. Very short, to the point, and they could read. And I found that it's generally, statistically, it's about 1 in 5 people will respond. And you have to keep that in mind. You've got to continue to be consistent, perceptive, and persistent about getting out there and not just looking at the job listed, but really going after what it is that you want. And then the last thing I'll say, I don't remember the last of your question because you get a lot of parts of the question, so tell me if I missed anything. But the last piece is really staying in action in the space to which you want results. So as long as you're sending out requests, even if people aren't responding, you're staying in action in the space to which you want results. And results actually will come. So you do all of those things that I just mentioned, and it really elevates your job search rather than just looking at job boards.
I love that. I think that's really fascinating. I think that makes a ton of sense. It makes me think of a question I'd love to ask the students real quick. Students, if you could post in the comments section, what are you going to start doing to identify some of those hidden job opportunities? Katy, I love that you brought that up because I think that is something that's so powerful. I mean, you brought up a handful of things that I love. One, the fact that you said 1 out of 5 people respond. Sometimes I'll talk to students and they say something like, well, I emailed this one professional this one time and they didn't respond. I must not be interesting, or they just must not be interested in me, or this just is a big waste of time. It's like, what do you have to lose? It's an email. It's a copy and paster. It's you use the same subject line, you use the same content, change the name, and you want to know what, you could pop that out to 5, 10, 15, 20 people. If we work on this 1 in 5 rule, if we send out to 20 people, that's 4 responses. That's great. And what, that takes 20 minutes?
100 a month. 5 a day, 25 a week, 100 a month. 5 a day, 25 a week, 100 a month. Before you know it, you'll have a response. And sometimes you may think it's strange. It feels strange to send these to people that I don't even know. It really is. It's actually how it works.
That's exactly how it works. Because you're, and the other key thing is, not only is it the amount of messages to the number of people, but also following up too. Because people get a message and they forget about it. They see it, they open it, and they forget to respond. Follow up, touch base, reconnect. It's okay. You got permission. I love that bit of advice, because I think that's so critical. That persistence is so powerful. And also, you don't necessarily need to be seeking a job when you're chatting with them. Oftentimes it's just building relationships, right? Is that how you would say that it is, at least it begins, Katy?
Many times it's building relationships, because they may not have something at the moment, but they'll remember this that was so early in their career journey, that was willing to put themselves out there. And they may think, I really need someone that's that adventurous in spirit. I just had something open up, and I wonder if that person would be interested. And it could be 30 days after you actually reached out. I'll tell you a super quick story. My sister did a on-campus interviewing. She started her career, and she's been in Frito-Lay for 30 years. And one of the interviews actually wrote down on his handwritten notes, out of the tens of hundreds of people that he interviewed on college campus, and wrote down that she was persistent, professionally dressed, and articulate. And then it was, I don't know, 6 months later that she got a call from that. So it's in today's environment a very quick response. It may not be that, it's just putting it out there.
Well, absolutely. And one other thing that I've not suggested before in the past to students, but I think it's something very much you could do now, because LinkedIn's changing. But you could create a poll. You could create content around your industry or space. Like, you could essentially say, you create a poll that says something along the lines of, let's say you want to get into civil engineering. You could say, what are the biggest challenges faced by civil engineers in the workplace today, ? And you could come up with 3 different options, and then other posts in the comments below. And civil engineers and people that are in and or around the civil engineering space are going to interact with that. They're going to vote, they're going to comment, they're going to see that, they're going to be genuinely curious. And maybe the first post or the second post doesn't get a lot of traction, but if you post enough about it, maybe by the 3rd, 4th, 5th post, you may have 5, 10 people voting on your poll that are in the civil engineering space. And you say, hey, I would love to connect and ask you some questions and learn about your work and learn how you got into this and why you do your work. Because I think if you can be almost like a pseudo thought leader by asking thoughtful questions, you can actually really position yourself nicely on LinkedIn.
I completely agree. Again, it's a different action. It's about being in action in a space in which you want results. So you're putting up polls, you're putting up content, you're making connections, you're sending out connect request letters, you're sending out introductory letters. To your point earlier, you basically have a static email that you can just cut and paste. All of that, and think about it, everything we just mentioned didn't say one thing about applying for the jobs that are posted, even though you should be doing that at the same time as well. But all of these things are tools and strategies that I don't know are really extraordinarily well known. But it's really good stuff to learn and practice, and it's a muscle, by the way.
Totally. And that's exactly it. I mean, I think LinkedIn is still this open frontier where people don't really actively post all that frequently. People don't post all that much. And so if you're somebody who is posting content or interacting with people on LinkedIn, you are one of the few, and LinkedIn is going to naturally extrapolate and push out your content to more people. So I think that is really critical. So, on the topic of applying for roles, because I know a lot of students are thinking about this and they're thinking like, okay, great, I'll go on LinkedIn, I'll send people messages, I'll send them connection requests. Okay, sure. But I think a lot of students get really hung up on this one job. They think to themselves, like, I'm qualified. This one job is the perfect fit for me. They've already built it in their mind that this is their dream job. Whatever. I don't know what they got going in their head, but they build up that this is their dream job. And for whatever reason, they're not getting a call back. They're not even getting an interview, or maybe like getting an interview, but they didn't get the job. Have you ever applied for a role that you knew you were qualified for, or that you knew like, man, I would be the perfect person for this role, but for whatever reason, they didn't reciprocate? If so, how'd you handle that?
100%. I think, almost everybody has, because we have certain concepts in our mind of what we think is perfect for us. And then it doesn't come to fruition, which if that comes, disappointment. And what I had this amazing career coach at the time that I, went back out in the job market in 2019. And by the way, don't be intimidated by LinkedIn. I didn't have a LinkedIn profile. I didn't have one connection. What is it? 2.5 years later, I've got over 2,000 connections. So don't feel intimidated. You start with one and you continue to build. So what I did with that opportunity, that coach, job coach I had, said, you've got to apply for that and release it, because if it is for you, it will be for you. And I was like, oh, come on, are you serious? Like, I'm qualified in every single bit and bob. I know exactly, how I'd be able to lead this team and lead this company into, better utilizing their real estate portfolio. And it wasn't for me. But what is so true about what she said to me was, if I had gotten that, I would not have been in the last firm I was in, because I would have been otherwise employed and learned all the things that I learned from this last firm, which were incredibly valuable. So where something doesn't come to fruition, it's because there is something else for you. So what I learned to do was apply and release it. Apply and continue to follow up, do all of the mechanical things you need to do, but apply and release it, because if it is for you, it will happen. I mean, this last role, I applied before a failed IPO, had a conversation, followed up knowing or thinking in my own mind that it would take the company quite a while to recover from said failed IPO, said that as much in my email, thinking it wasn't going to go anywhere, and was asked to fly out for an interview on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas.
Wow.
And started in February 2020 after a Q4 failed IPO. I had no basic concept that that company would start to restructure and get themselves together that quickly with a new direction. So it goes both ways. Jobs that you don't think are going to go somewhere, that you don't think have any kind of tail, and then jobs you think really are for you don't come to pass. You've got to be really firm on what it is that you have to offer, and really firm that what it is for you will come find you, as long as you're staying in action and doing all these things that we just walk through and talk about.
I love that apply and release mentality. I think that's such a critical thing. I think that's the best way of handling it. I almost liken it to a relationship almost. It's like you can formulate that you really like this other person so much. You could put them on this pedestal. You can say that they're amazing. You can say that they're the best. But at the end of the day, if they don't like you, it's not going to work. Even like your amount of like for them is never going to make up for the lack of like they have for you, and vice versa. So when you've got two entities that are mutually attracted to each other, whether that be in a relationship or in a job opportunity, I think that's where you're seeking. And ultimately, it's a product of putting yourself out there to as many opportunities that fit what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do. And for some of you, it may mean expanding your definition of what you would love to do, because to the point before, it can be easy to become infatuated with a certain role, that this is the role for you and that there's no other role that could possibly fill your time and your energy and your effort. But here's the thing, people change roles all the time. They change roles very frequently, especially right now. We talk about this great resignation thing. People are switching roles quite frequently. And when they entered in those roles, they didn't think, oh, I'm going to definitely leave this role within the next 6 months or 12 months or, 2 years or whatever, they were planning on leaving. They didn't come in with that expectation, but sometimes things happen. You learn things, you realize some things aren't the right things. And then on the other hand, you learn of some roles that maybe you weren't expecting at all. Like I would imagine, Katy, for you, when you went from Bake One and it was acquired by JP Morgan, I bet there was maybe some uneasiness or uncertainty where you're like, oh, so we're now acquired by this big JP Morgan. Like, what's going to happen here? Are they going to let everybody go? Or are they going to embrace us now that they've acquired us? Like, how is this all going to work? And is this going to be a good working scenario for me? I bet there was some uneasiness there, but it seems like just in our conversations in the past that it worked out really well for you.
Yeah, of course there was uneasiness. Whenever you have two companies, either merge or one acquires the other, you have duplicative functions. And so there's some shedding that has to happen for the business. And if I had, which I'm sure, I wasted some mental energy that maybe I would choose not to today. But if I had wasted a whole lot of mental energy worrying about that, and if I could go back and tell myself, I guess, for the degree of the energy that I chose to waste at that point in time, I could have gone back to myself then at that point and say, guess what? You're going to be with this company another 19 years.
Wow.
Or when I moved and relocated from Ohio to Texas, back home, and my job and the staff that I had was in Ohio. And I said to our CFO at the time, hey, do you mind trying to do this remote? It was 12 years ago. COVID has changed that completely on its ear now, right? So it wouldn't even really, it would be like, yeah, sure, now. But at that point in time, just 12 years ago, it was not a big thing. He said, well, try it. And if I had wasted energy on that, I would have gone back and said, hey, guess what? You're going to have another 10 years yet.
Crazy.
So you've got to release and say, what you think you can create and design potentially could be even broader and bigger if you allow that to occur. And what I interviewed, even with the company that I was just recently with, what I interviewed for is not the job I ultimately got, which wasn't even posted at the time, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
It wasn't even posted. I talked to the gentleman for a role, which now in hindsight, I really would not have liked. So I posted for a role and applied for a role that I thought I would like, but until you get into a firm, sometimes you don't really know. And he said, you know what, I don't know, you could do this fine, but I really think you'd be much better at this other role. And the person in charge happens to be my wife. So they were both in the firm, and that's who I interviewed with and ended up getting on with the company, was promoted 3 times within 6 months. So again, what was there for me was bigger and broader than I even created for myself. Just allowed that to happen.
It makes me think, I love to ask the students a question. So if you're a student right now and you're thinking to yourself like, man, there's just not enough job opportunities for me that are just really in my sweet spot of what I would love to be doing, what is your biggest fear for expanding your job search criteria for what you might love to do? The second question, or the question I have, if you're not in a scenario, if you feel like the world's my oyster, I could do anything, what is the thing that you would like to be doing? How would you like to narrow it down? Because I want to hit both sides, because some of you might be listening to this and might be thinking like, I've only got one company that I could possibly work for and doing one type of work, and that is my dream job. Like, let's expand that a little bit. How can we go about expanding that? What would the biggest fear be for expanding that? And then on the flip side, if you're someone who's like, okay, cool, I totally get it. I'm open to anything. Like, bring it on, baby. That's great. What is your fear with narrowing it down a little bit, so then you can actually focus on something? Because being too open is not great either, because you rather, I think what's the saying is to be a jack of all trades is to be a master of none, or something like that. Is like, if
you have to to give companies a sense of what value you're bringing to the table, what skill sets you're bringing to the table,
Yeah.
so that, fit you in. So you still have to have a sense of understanding of your skill sets. And what I like to do is you list your skills and you determine what you really enjoy doing with those.
Ooh.
Like, I'm really good organizationally. I'm really good at, this is for me, I'm really good at running, large dispersed operations. I'm not really passionate. I'm good at it. So, okay, so what skills am I good at that I'm also passionate about?
I love that advice. What are you good at and what are you passionate about? Because I see a lot of students making this mistake is they'll get this degree. They'll get this degree that says, I am an engineer, or I am in marketing, or I am in this, or I'm in that. And therefore I must pursue a career directly linear within that degree path, because why else would anybody hire me? In reality, there are skills that you are developing through those degree paths that can be applied to a lot of different areas. I know my fiance really struggled with that. She got a degree essentially in marketing, and she got into some marketing roles within companies. She actually even started her own marketing business and was like, Garrett, I don't like marketing. I don't like doing this stuff. And so she at first felt really hypocritical and almost like this identity crisis, because she was like, I don't want to pursue this type of work. And then she ended up finding different types of work within both creating events and with not only events, but also just within business development that she really enjoyed, and started doing really well within different companies, and realized that those skills could apply. But the point is as a student, you don't actually have to be wed to your degree path as to what career you end up pursuing.
Very true. And you will find that as you go throughout your career, where you started is not necessarily where you will end. So obviously, if you train and you really want to be a physician, then you'll be a physician. But when you're entering into business, the field is broad and wide, and you really honestly don't know what you don't know. So I started in the financial banking industry at a really great time, building operations from the ground up. I'd come in and I would build them, or I'd fix them. And I took a dramatic left turn midway through my career inside the same firm to manage real estate. And little did I know, would I fall in love with that. And you couldn't have told me at all that that's what I would end up doing and really pursuing from that point for the rest of my career. If it wasn't coming from what I like to say, I didn't know this at the time, but I like saying, coming from a place of yes. So the CFO at the time convinced me, you don't know anything about commercial real estate, but don't worry about it, you'll learn. She knew me. She knew I was, tenacious and would get to the bottom of everything. And I did, and I fell in love with it. But now I'm really coming from a place of yes to say, well, since there are things that I just don't know that I don't know, what could I potentially explore that would really pique my interest? You find those things as you go through your career. But the point is, where you start may not be where you end.
Love that.
You may get to start, if you're lucky, you get to start in your purpose and in your flow, and you really love it. You may start like your fiance did and realize, wow, I got this degree, it's not for me, and it's okay to take a different step so that I can really be happy in what I'm doing.
Yeah. So we talked about strategies of going about networking, getting our foot in the door, what we can do to meet different people or explore what our options could be professionally. But I would love to know, is there anything we should keep an eye out for that maybe is not the right way about networking or getting our foot in the door for opportunities? I think there might be some students who hear this and are like, carte blanche, let's do all the things. And perhaps there are some things that might not be the best in terms of practices as it pertains to getting your foot in the door. Are there any things that are just not the right thing to do as it pertains to putting yourself out there?
I think of a couple right off the top of my head. First, it's still important to be very professional. As casual as we are in our lives, that's both the way in which we present ourselves and the way in which we sometimes speak. It's still very important to be professional in our written and our verbal communications. So when sending out those connection requests or sending out, an introductory of yourself. Not only is it professional and brief, to get your point across, but it shouldn't be colloquial. It shouldn't be casual or uber casual in it. And it doesn't have to be uber uptight either. It just needs to be professional, right? And then second thing is there's something about being persistent, which is really attractive to people. And then there's a line, persistence. But if you cross that line, then it crosses into annoyance, right? So that's where you start getting into really. So you may send a connection request if it's an industry or person you really want to connect. You may send a second one. But after the third, I probably would stop. And you have to release it. You've got to practice just as much as practicing persistence or connecting on LinkedIn. Releasing is also a practice. And so those are two that I can think of really kind of off the top of my head, as know where your boundaries are, and then still continue to conduct all forms of communication professionally.
One thing I would add on to this, because I think it can sometimes be confused. Like I'll sometimes see a lot of students practicing their elevator pitch, and they'll be at a networking event and they'll be like, "Hi, John, I'm Garrett, and this is what I do, and here are all the things that I've done, and here's some more things that I've done, and here's some more things about me, and here's some other things about me, and oh, this is something else that I've done too." And it's all about me. And one thing that I've just found just from experience is that people care about themselves, meaning they don't care about you. So if you can find ways to engage them with questions about them and their life and their experience, they're much more likely to be interested in you than your elevator pitch likely would be. So I would say if you could focus, not to say don't have an elevator pitch, I'm saying have an elevator pitch, but focus on the other person when speaking with them. I liken it to make an analogy of it. When you take a group picture with people, who's the person you look at first, last, and most often? It's yourself. And so when it comes to the conversation with somebody else, they care about themselves too. So if you can focus on them, they're much more likely to be interested in you because you showed an interest in them, if that makes any sense.
A fundamental human characteristic is that we are hardwired in many ways to be myopic. We're also hardwired to be interconnected. So if you are having a conversation and truly interested in the other person, that's touching on the interconnected relational component. And if you ask questions or really interested in that other person, it says a lot about you, And that person's more inclined, because we do have a fundamental, lean toward being myopic. It creates interest in you because you're so interested in them, right? So it creates almost a foundation before you start getting into yourself. So foot forward, I agree. Garrett, ask a lot of questions. You can garner a lot of information too, which helps you.
I love that. I want to ask the students another question real quick, and that is, and Katie, you brought this up before, and I love that you brought this up, and that was, what are the unique things that you like to do? Like within your educational studies right now, within what you're studying right now in higher ed, there are certain classes maybe that you like, maybe there are certain projects within classes that you really like. What about those projects do you like? Like, and this can be the most minute things. It could be, I really enjoy interacting with people and having high level strategy discussions about this topic. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's directly related to some class that you're taking. It doesn't have to be like, I love doing tax accounting. It doesn't have to be that. It could be that. And if it is that, fantastic. But it could also be something like, I enjoy chatting with friends in between classes. I enjoy the social activity of putting together a student organization or an event and then actually implementing it and having people show up. It could be a variety of things. I don't know. But what are those things that you really enjoy about your coursework or that your working experience right now? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. So Katie, I'd love to ask you a couple final questions. And that is, first, are there any other final tips that you have for students as they get their foot out there, put themselves out there for professional experiences?
I think you can offer a whole lot of practical things, which we did in this time that we've talked about. I think, the only other thing that I would add is that with the perseverance and the persistence, you should be really kind to yourself and saying, look, you're doing a great job. I've got my 5 connections out today, and this is my, I've reached my goal and objective for today. Can I do, one more thing that may have been tomorrow? And be really kind, because again, unfortunately, our brains tend to be hardwired toward the negative. Oh, well, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, or so-and-so didn't respond. I would say be kind and say, these are all the things that I've done and I'm doing a really great job. What else could I do today that would help? And lastly, or I would add to that is make sure you have a good support system that also will champion and cheer you as you go on your quest for, how you're going to start your career.
Awesome. And every student in our group has a mentor. So that's fantastic. And that's a great, that's a great lead into the mentor program. So that's fantastic. So Katy, one other thing that you said, even like within being kind to yourself, that I thought was really powerful was the power of setting specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. I think like if you can say, hey, I sent out 5 connection requests, like the fact that there's a mile marker that you said, I have hit that mile marker, so therefore I can celebrate my win. It's so easy to get down on yourself when you've been working hard. If there's not a very clear mile marker that I've either hit or surpassed, if it's vague or ambiguous, it's easy to do nothing or not do much at all because it's not very clear as to what success looks like. Or it's also very easy to burn yourself out and work super hard and not be kind to yourself and put yourself into potentially a negative situation because you are not giving yourself enough credit because you don't even know whether or not credit's due.
Right, and no one really wants to hire anybody in a negative space.
That's so right.
Your highway of, I'm out here, I'm going after it. I have very clear intention of what it is that I want to do, my skill sets that I have to offer, and people are drawn. They're not drawn to negative. It's very difficult to. It permeates all of you, right? We don't have compartments, as people would, tend to like to think. We don't have compartments. It permeates everything. So you do have to stay in a positive mind space, and you do, to your point, Garrett, need to reward yourself. So let's say you've done everything you need to do for the week. You've done above and beyond, and it's Friday afternoon, and you want to go see a movie with a friend. Go see the movie with a friend. Go see the movie. Don't go see that on Monday and you haven't done all your stuff. Go see it as, on Friday or whatever, to reward yourself, because it is a balance. I mean, we only have one life to live. It is a balance. And as long as you're staying, you have true intention, you've written it down, you follow all the mechanical processes, it will happen. It will happen.
Awesome. Katy, great advice. This has been fantastic. Thank you for being here for this workshop this evening. Last question is, how can our students connect with you, learn more about you? I know we've talked about LinkedIn. Would you be okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Of course. I have a wide, vast network. So it's really good. As I said, LinkedIn is a great network. I'm on LinkedIn as Katy Wright, ANN. And Garrett, you probably can put in the chat or something, maybe an address to that, but I'm happy to connect with anyone and everyone and leverage my connections. And you're welcome to reach out to me. For one, I love to pay it forward to those that are embarking on this journey for their career. And such a pleasure talking to you, Garrett, and I hope this is helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, students, for being here. Katy, thank you for being here. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your evening. See you, everybody.